A search and rescue team gets a missing person call. Standard procedure. They head into the forest. They search for hours. And then, deep in the trees, far from any trail, far from any road, one of them finds something that should not be there. A camera, hidden, mounted low on a tree trunk, pointed directly at a narrow path through the woods. No wildlife researcher claimed it. No ranger knew about it. And when investigators pulled the footage, the questions stopped being about one missing person. In this video, 3 things are going to shake you. First, what search and rescue teams actually find in remote forests that never makes the headlines. Second, the real cases where hidden cameras became the key to solving disappearances. And third, what the footage on one particular camera revealed that changed the entire direction of an investigation. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Search and rescue operations happen more often than most people realize. In the United States alone, the National Park Service responds to roughly 3,000 search and rescue operations every year. That is an average of 8 per day. And that number does not include the thousands more handled by county sheriffs, volunteer SAR teams, and state agencies in forests, mountains, and wilderness areas across the country. Most of these cases resolve quickly. A hiker gets turned around. A hunter stays out too long. Someone activates a personal locator beacon and gets found within hours. But some do not. Some cases drag on for days, weeks, and in a small number of situations, searchers find things in the forest that no one sent them there to find. Here is the first detail most people do not know. Trail cameras, also called game cameras, are extraordinarily common in remote forests. Hunters set them up to track deer movement. Wildlife researchers use them to monitor animal populations. Property owners near wilderness boundaries mount them for security. There are tens of thousands of these cameras in American forests at any given moment. Most run on batteries. Most record continuously for months. And most of them capture footage that no one ever reviews. Second thing to know, SAR teams are trained to notice anything out of place. A snapped branch, a piece of fabric, a scuff mark in the mud, a hidden camera mounted below eye level, pointed at a footpath. That qualifies. Now here's where things get really interesting. When a missing person is reported in a forested area, investigators follow a protocol called a last known point investigation. You work outward from the last confirmed location. You map every trail, every road, every access point within a radius. And in the digital age, you look for something specific. Any electronic device that might have captured the person passing through. Security cameras at trailheads, dash cams in parking lots, traffic cameras on nearby roads, and increasingly, trail cameras in the woods. In 2025, investigators searching for Melissa Casillas, a 53-year-old administrative worker at Los Alamos National Laboratory who vanished near the Carson National Forest in New Mexico, identified the last confirmed image of her on security camera footage. It showed her vehicle near a remote forest road on June 26th. Forest Road 437, a single-lane dirt track accessible from a state highway, leading deep into a wilderness area described by locals as largely inaccessible on foot. She was found nearly a year later. A hiker discovered her remains in dense terrain that search teams had previously covered in what SAR Taos president Delinda Van Brighten described as one of the hardest searches of her 24-year career. Her team was wading through upper thigh-deep mud with every step. But here is the detail that matters for this story. In cases like this, where someone vanishes near remote forest roads, investigators increasingly rely on trail cameras that hunters and wildlife researchers have quietly placed across vast stretches of wilderness. cameras that were never intended as surveillance. Cameras the missing person never knew were there. And in several documented cases, those cameras have captured things their owners never expected to see. Not animals, not trespassers. The final confirmed moments of someone who was never coming back. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. The Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon case is one of the most studied disappearances of the last decade. In April 2014, 2 Dutch students vanished while hiking in the Baru Highlands of Panama. Initial searches found nothing. Weeks passed. Then, nearly 3 months later, a backpack was discovered near a remote river. Inside it was a camera, Lisanne's Canon PowerShot, and on its memory card, 133 photographs. The first images, taken April 1st, showed both women smiling at a scenic overlook. Standard tourist photos. Then something changed. The final images, taken in the days after they became lost, told a completely different story. Dark, blurred, shot in apparent distress. The camera became the primary evidence in a case that remains officially unsolved, and the most analyzed piece of evidence in it. The camera did not find them, but it told investigators more about their final days than any other source of evidence recovered from that forest. Here is why this matters. A camera in the woods does not care about the investigation. It does not know someone is missing. It just records what passes in front of its lens, whatever that turns out to be. And increasingly, SAR teams and investigators are learning to treat the forest themselves as evidence. Not just the person they are searching for, but everything the forest recorded while they were there. I will explain in just a moment what happens when that footage contains something no one expected. This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. Here is the scenario investigators dread most. A SAR team is moving through dense forest, off-trail, following a grid search pattern. One of them spots it, a trail camera mounted about 3 feet off the ground on a Douglas fir, angled low toward a narrow game path. No marking, no identifying tag, no indication of who placed it or when. The camera is still running. In documented cases where SAR teams have encountered unmarked cameras during active searches, the standard procedure is to flag the location, photograph the camera in situ, and retrieve it for investigation. The footage on it then becomes part of the case file. What investigators look for is straightforward in concept but deeply unsettling in practice. They are looking for any image, day or night, of the missing person passing through that location. Timestamp, direction of travel, physical condition. In some cases, that footage has confirmed a person was still alive at a specific point in the forest, narrowing the search radius and saving lives. In other cases, it has confirmed the opposite. And in a smaller number of cases, documented quietly without widespread media coverage, the footage has shown something else entirely. Another person, moving through the same area, in the same time window, someone who was never reported to be there. That is when a missing person case stops being just a missing person case. Law enforcement does not always disclose when trail camera footage becomes part of an investigation. In most states, it is not legally required. The footage can be seized quietly under a search warrant, reviewed by investigators, and entered into evidence without any public announcement, which means the number of cases where a hidden forest camera changed an investigation's direction is almost certainly higher than what has been publicly reported. So what does all this mean for us today? There are 3 things this story reveals that go well beyond one disappearance. First, the forest is no longer unwatched. This is a fundamental shift that has happened gradually, almost invisibly. Trail cameras have become so affordable. Many models now cost under $50. and so widely used that dense wilderness areas in North America, Europe, and parts of Asia now have significant passive surveillance coverage. Not managed by any authority, not coordinated, just thousands of individual devices running quietly, capturing whatever moves past them. For SAR teams, this is potentially life-saving. A camera placed by a deer hunter 3 months earlier might be the only device that captured a missing hiker's final movements. That footage could direct a search to the right valley, the right ridge, the right creek. The challenge is that nobody knows where all those cameras are. There is no registry, no map. Finding them during an active search is largely a matter of chance, or of knowing the land well enough to think like a hunter. Second implication, privacy in wilderness areas is a growing legal question. In most jurisdictions, placing a camera on public land is legal. Reviewing footage you collect from that camera is legal. But the boundaries around what happens when that footage captures a person, especially a person in distress, in their final moments, in a private moment, are largely unresolved. Several legal scholars have noted that trail camera footage occupies a strange gap in privacy law. You have no expectation of privacy on a public trail, but you also have no idea you are being recorded. And the person who owns that camera has no obligation to check their footage, report what they find, or hand it over without a warrant. Third, and this is the one that stays with you. Somewhere in American forests right now, there are trail cameras running on batteries full of footage that nobody has checked in months. Some of that footage captured nothing more than deer and raccoons. But some of it, statistically, almost certainly, captured something else. A person who later went missing. A vehicle that drove in but never drove out. A figure moving through the trees at an hour when no one should have been there. That footage is just sitting there, in the dark, in the cold, waiting. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. Here is the detail that reframes every missing person case you have ever heard about. SAR teams have begun actively integrating trail camera intelligence into search protocol. Some counties now maintain informal networks of hunters and landowners who agree to hand over footage on request during active searches. In particularly dense wilderness regions, coordinators radio hunters directly, asking not just for help searching, but for the location of every camera they have in the field. It is not a formal system, it is not funded, it runs entirely on relationships and goodwill, but it has found people. In at least several documented rescues, trail camera footage retrieved during an active search confirmed a missing person's location or the direction they were last moving, in time to redirect teams and save a life. The forest has always been a place where things disappear, where the density of trees and terrain can swallow a person completely, leaving searchers with nothing. But now, quietly, the forest is starting to talk back, one camera at a time. We started this video with a SAR team finding something unexpected, a hidden camera deep in the forest during a missing person search. The truth is that this happens more often than the public knows. And what those cameras capture, the last steps of the lost, the movements of the unknown, is shaping investigations in ways that are only beginning to be understood. The forest was never empty. We just could not see it. If this opened your eyes, let us bring it together. Trail cameras are everywhere in remote forests, placed by hunters, researchers, and property owners, running silently for months. SAR teams increasingly treat them as active evidence during missing person searches. In documented cases, footage from those cameras has confirmed a missing person's last known movements. changed the direction of investigations, and in some situations, revealed the presence of unknown individuals in restricted wilderness at critical times. The legal framework around that footage, who owns it, who can access it, what can be done with it, remains largely unresolved. The forest is no longer a blank space on the map. If you want to keep understanding the hidden systems operating around us, the ones that don't make the evening news but quietly shape how investigations work, how people are found, and how the world actually functions, subscribe. That is exactly what this channel covers. Here is your question for the comments. If you found an unmarked trail camera deep in the forest during a hike, no owner, no tag, clearly still running, what would you do? Leave it? Report it? Take it? Drop your answer below. You might be surprised how divided people are on that question. And when you are ready, watch the next video, because it covers the cases where trail camera footage was the only evidence investigators had, and what they found on it was nothing like what anyone expected.